So live study group East Coast is hosted by myself and Skylar Walters, and today we'll be kind of discussing the brevity of AP World History, concise review of the Neolithic Revolution, the Imperial Age, and also the Feudalistic period, which is all the periods before 1200 CE when your AP World History modern curriculum starts. So for a background, my name is Varun Karathalo. I'm part of the WHAP World History AP Modern Stream team. I'm a 10th grader at Alliance Academy for Innovation in Forsyth County, Georgia, and I received a 5 on the 2019 AP World History exam. I'm a history buff, I'm a classical period buff, and I just love talking about everything related to world history and the classical period, things like that. So I'm very happy to be here. So for a brief overview, what is Fiveable? So Fiveable is a platform for you guys. A good comparison would be Twitch. So Twitch is a platform for gamers, and it allows for seamless streamer and viewer interaction and communication between your gamers and your streamers, things like that. And so Fiveable is very similar in platform to Twitch in that we try to emulate the classroom setting and the classroom archetype. And we have seamless interactions between teachers and students from across the nation. We put you with the best students, the best teachers to kind of jumpstart your learning, jumpstart your comprehension of the AP World History curriculum. First, we're talking about Unit 0, kind of a brief overview of what Unit 0 is as a period. Again, Unit 0 is a reference to the period before 1200 CE, or the modern period. We also have within Unit 0 the Neolithic Revolution, which is kind of the beginnings of civilization. We see agriculture start to form in this period. We see the classical period, the rise of empires, Rome, Greece, Han Dynasty, these things start to form. These consolidation of territory, the consolidation of land, military by these amazing, amazing emperors. And we also see something called the Feudal Age, which occurs after the fall of Rome, and which we'll explain to you in a little bit. The Feudal Age kind of represents a broad restructuring of society socially and economically. So essential study skills in the AP World History or AP curriculum, we'll kind of discuss what it takes to become a good student, what it takes to get a 5 on the AP exam, and how to really succeed in the AP World History course. After this, we'll kind of talk about some open-ended questions from you guys. We'll kind of entertain some questions. And along with this, we'll talk about the importance of Unit 0 in the AP World History curriculum as kind of a baseline for your studies as a student. So, Unit 0, a brief overview. So during this period, the first thing that we see is called the Paleolithic shift from Paleolithic Revolution to the Neolithic Revolution. And the Paleolithic period is really called the Old Stone Age, and that it's classified as the period before 8,500 BCE, when groups of nomadic hunter-gatherers kind of, sustain their society based on hunting and gathering. And it's a very unsustainable society, to be frank. We don't have a big population during this period. In the Paleolithic period, people are at every moment, every instant, they were concerned about their well-being at that moment. So in 8,500 BCE, we see the start of something called a Neolithic period, or the New Stone Age, wherein groups of nomadic hunter-gatherers begin to shift from their traditional folk ways, developing agriculture along the Fertile Crescent. Now, does anybody know who controlled the Fertile Crescent at this period? Looks like Skylar's joining. Let me invite her on screen to talk about this. All right, so while we're waiting, let's talk about anything about the Paleolithic period, Neolithic period. I'll put out a poll for that. So yeah, feel free to kind of comment what you know about the Neolithic period. Again, this period is very influential in the broad span of Unit 0, and it's kind of the beginning of the context that we talk about in the AP World History curriculum. And we'll get on with our session in a few minutes here. All right, so while we're waiting, I'll continue the stream. So again, where I left off, the Fertile Crescent is where agriculture first begins to develop. We see the Sumerian society, as you may know from your previous studies or from your book reading, things like that. We see the Sumerian society first develop agriculture. They develop wheat and barley in Europe, off in Arabia to be exact, off some wild strains of grass, wild strains of produce, things like that. And then we have settled agriculture leads to many, many transformational things, socially, politically, and economically. And we really see the implementation of social stratification. Now, especially in Sumerian society, 10% of the population was freed up to pursue their own trades. We have merchants start to grow from this group, artisans. We see even servants, peasants, things like these start to form just because there's not such a reliance upon survival. There's not such a communal society. We also have organized religion as people get some free time. They begin to contemplate upon life's big questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Who sent me here? We see God start to form as a symbol. We see systems of written communication as people start to codify their writing in order to really, really jumpstart their learning and jumpstart their agricultural bouts. We also see intercontinental political systems, intercontinental government emerge as a way to kind of control agriculture, control things like that in the Neolithic period, because again, agriculture was very, very hard in these civilizations. So to wrap it all up, social stratification, organized religion, written communication, and intercontinental government between newly settled societies. So what are some examples of newly settled societies in the Neolithic period? First, we see Mesopotamia. As I stated before, we have the Sumerian civilization start to form in this period. I mean, we also have the many civilizations along this Fertile Crescent in the Tigris and Euphrates River. What really characterizes the Mesopotamian system is organized government. Now we have a king, we have tribal groups, we have almost a town hall type system, and we have legal codes. So there's very, very important things start to form in the Mesopotamian civilizations. So we see cuneiform as the first written language in the entire world. So that's very influential. We see the Epic of Gilgamesh, the world's first novel form in Mesopotamia. So judging by this as the first agricultural civilization, we see many things start to spur. For example, legal codes, we see Hammurabi's code, if you may have read somewhere else, which kind of outlined some direct punishments for people who didn't really follow through with their goals. And obviously, we have organized religion. We have people like the sun god Shamash. We have ziggurats start to form to codify religion, to represent religion, does represent modern monumental architecture, things like that. Now, after this, we have Egypt as another Neolithic civilization that really flourishes during this period. We have organized government, first of all, and then we have monumental architecture. So organized government, what I mean is we have pharaohs. Pharaohs is what all you need to know about Egypt. We have monumental architecture. We have pyramids to kind of represent this organized religion that they had. We have the sun god, as Skylar was telling me a few minutes ago during our discussion. We have the sun god Ra, who really represents the brevity of this culture, represents the zeal of this culture, things like that. And also we have the Harappan Civilization start to form after this. They're based in the Indus River Valley in Western India, and they kind of use advanced metallurgy. We see metal things become very common at the populace during this period. Metallurgy is an essential term in the AP World History modern curriculum, and it means a advanced knowledge of metals.
Hey,
Okay,
everyone.
all right.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry for the delay. My computer's going a little crazy. Continue.
All right, I'm on Harappa right now, so you can just continue with the slide.
Okay, just going to the next one.
All right.
Okay, so then we're going to talk about the Olmecs. So we can think about the Olmecs if we're trying to compare societies, almost like the Mesopotamia of the Americas. They were really one of the first major groups to begin agriculture in this region. Hi, Eric Beckman. Really, they had a big role. There was a lot of religion that was involved in their society. So one thing that we can think about are those giant heads, the monumental heads that they had. That's really the first thing that pops into a lot of people's minds when they imagine Olmecs.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Imperial Age, which starts to form during the classical period of 600 BCE to 600 CE. So as we talked about, Skylar and I, the first civilizations in the AP World History modern curriculum, we see the charismatic rulers of these civilizations like Caesar, Augustus. We see Alexander the Great start to have ambition. They start to expand beyond cultural and regional boundaries and, really pursue cultural interconnectivity with other peoples. And we see the rise of extensive empires during this period. So through military conquest, as you can see in the left picture, as one of the Roman hoplites, we see the Greek hoplites, we see rulers expand their territorial holdings, playing a role in the ultimate spread of culture, spur of faith, and the rise of economic diversification. So during the Imperial Age, we see people like the Roman Empire start to take over different other multiculturally, ethnically diverse peoples. And so through this, we see trade start to spur, culture, language, philosophy start to spur. We see people exploring this more so. We see that, again, like we saw the rise of religion, rise of people exploring themselves during this period that flourishes. We see people like Socrates, Aristotle. They inspire later scientists, inspire later thinkers, and they kind of contemplate their situation in the equilibrium of the earth. We also see extensive trade routes between, for example, the Han Empire, the Roman Empire. The Silk Roads formed during this period. So it's a flourishing of empires, flourishing of trade, flourishing of religion, culture, and philosophy. It's a very, very interconnected period.
Yeah, and now we're going to talk about European feudalism. It's important to sort of make this distinguishment because there's a lot of differences in religion between places like Japan and later Mesopotamia. So after the Roman Empire fell, there was this huge power vacuum in Europe. You had all these groups vying for power. So you had the Goths, the Ostrogoths, and the Visigoths, and you had the White Huns, two great examples of that. So a lot of times what happens is that the people, they started forming these small clumps of kingdoms all over Europe, and these were known as manors, basically. So the way the system worked was that there were all these peasants that worked on this land. And then there was a large physical manor on the land where a noble person lived. And basically, during the feudalistic period, if it was a very warring time, you can almost compare it to the Warring States period in China. But basically, what happened was the peasants would work the land in exchange for safety from the knights. Anyway, the church started to take on a really big role during this period. People sort of found comfort in the faith. In addition, there weren't as many interactions in this time period as there were with, say, the Romans. But a prime example that sort of counteracts a counterpoint to my statement is the Crusades, because that was when, for those of you who don't know, the Crusades were these series of expeditions that that Europeans went on to recapture the Holy Land, except 90% of the time they weren't in the Holy Land.
Yeah, again, as you're mentioning, there's always the exception, during this period. All right, so the Roman Catholic Church took a major advantage during this period. As she was mentioning, the Roman Catholic Church was overbearing because during the fall of the Roman Empire, Europe shifted to a non-partisan, a non-empirical reign. And the Crusades were very influential in that we see people conquering the Holy Land, conquering different regions, and it leads to intercultural connectivity. We see people start to bolster the age of exploration. So do you want to do this one, Scholar, since you missed out on a couple beforehand?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So we're going to talk about the importance of Unit Zero. So Unit Zero, it's really the foundation of everything else in AP World History. It provides you with all these really important key terms, like there's patriarchy, there's social stratification, diversification of labor, and it really, if you can understand period zero, it makes it so much easier to understand the rest of history. In addition, it sometimes helps if you know period zero for other tests that you might want to take. For example, I'm taking the SAT subject test for world history in December. I know Varun took it. And it's really helpful to know period zero if you want to take this, because colleges love it if you have subject tests.
Yeah, if you're passionate about world history, it's awesome to have the context, just so you can connect things in your life, things in any event in world history to past context, and even multiple choice questions, as the guy on the right is saying. So essential study skills in the AP curriculum. So the first essential study skill is time management. It's a very trivial thing, time management in AP World History or any AP World History curriculum, AP curriculum, because to be successful in any course, one must learn to prioritize tasks and to kind of attribute quotas to given tasks. I myself have really struggled with this, and I use a daily planner to kind of counteract the effects of procrastination, the effects of putting off tasks, things like that. You have anything to add, Skylar?
All the time. I'm terrible at time management, but AP World helped with that.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, you have a lot of reading to do every night. You're gonna have to manage your time, or else you'll fail the course, which that's the bleak reality.
Yeah, I mean, I would advise especially for like AP Worlds, you want to figure out an AP World time. For me, it was
Hmm.
always like 9:30 at night because eventually it became like a routine. I would just sit down and do my notes, and I would know this is the time to study.
So note taking, again, we're talking about time management. A lot of your time goes towards note taking. So note taking is fulfilled either at home or in class, but is an essential tool for all of you students. Good notes often translate into academic success because when you encode information, put your information in your own words, they become encoded in your brain. If you're in psychology, you know this. Note taking is essential for your success in the AP curriculum. You must take notes. You cannot just slack off and expect to get a good grade. I mean, we see people, even with amazing memory, they slack off, they don't get a good grade. So note taking is essential. I mean, never put this off. You can talk a little bit about that if you want. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I had a stream on notes. You guys should check that out.
for sure.
Their notes, at least for me, notes were really helpful because I took the course unintentionally as an independent study. So notes were really my best way of learning information. So that's just another point to add on there.
So testing strategies. Now, when you're taking a stimulus-based testing system, which many of you are not acquainted with if you're freshmen or sophomores, you must uphold a status of mastery in the testing field. And what I mean by this is you need to know what you're looking for. For example, what I use on the AP exam, any other exam like that, I look at the questions first. I look at the questions and then look at the stimulus. And that's how I kind of base my understanding of the questions, understanding of the topic. And so I actively look for things within the prompt. And so you need to find these things. What works for you may not work for everybody. So find what works for you, use it on unit tests, kind of practice it. Your teacher gives stimulus based exams, and definitely take practice exams all throughout the year to kind of use your testing strategies.
I mean,
Anything you want to?
yeah, with testing strategies, it's always really helpful to know what you're good at and what you're bad at. Like for me personally, I love multiple choice questions. I'm great at those. But like for the DBQ, I realized I'm not as good as that. So what I had to do is I had to study more for DBQs and study less time for multiple choice than I would have before.
Okay, so and then the fourth topic I was going to talk about for study skills is learner engagement. And it's very essential that you're invested. You know, you have personal equity, sweat equity into the topic that you're learning in the AP curriculum. It's essential that you as a learner really know you're interested in the topic because without it, it'll be all just information flying past your brain. You have to really comprehend this information connected to your life. And if you're not really interested in the topic, find a way to become interested. You know, connect it into your own life, connect it into your studies, you know, make it important to you. And that's just how what you have to do in the AP curriculum because without interest, you will fail. And learner engagement was a very essential thing. It even helps with testing strategies. I mean, me myself, as you were talking about DBQs, I remember last year I would make my own DBQs, find practice DBQs, just write them on my own, and go to my teacher in the morning and turn them in. So that's a prime example of learner engagement. You know, ask questions, be prepared, be engaged, and that's really how you succeed. I mean, I see note taking, I see time management, testing strategies, but to really get a 5, to kind of top all that, you know, you have to be engaged.
Yeah, I mean, you really summed that up really well. I mean, your number one resource is your teacher. Your teacher can help you with questions. Like I also used to go in and see one of the history teachers every morning. I would be like, "Hey, how can I make my writing better?" So you always want to if you don't comprehend something, ask your teachers, ask a friend who's taken the course. It's a very good idea.
Yeah, and you independently studied this, right?
What?
And you independently studied this course,
Oh,
right?
yeah. But I ended up taking honors history also. It was just a very
Mm.
strange turn of events. But I still had an honors world history teacher I could talk to.
Yeah, so you would appreciate having a teacher in world history for sure because, you know, yeah, so definitely ask your teachers questions. manage your time, take some good notes, and know how to take a stimulus-based testing system. All right, so if you want to go over this.
Oh yeah. Okay, everyone. It's time for the actual theme of this live stream. It is the Q&A. So if you guys have questions about what's going on in your class, if you want help with taking notes, if you want help with understanding a topic, maybe you have like a homework question and we could help guide you on the right path. We're here to help. You can leave your answers in the comments, or you could put it in the Ask a Question tab. For if you can't see it, it's on the bottom in the middle of your screen. And maybe you want advice from us. Maybe you want to see, hey, how would you recommend that? What's the best way to write a short answer question or anything like that? Ask us about resources, whatever you want.
Yeah, it should be a monthly session or bi-monthly session. I mean, we're here to help. We're here to answer your questions. So that's really the focus of this stream. Not really on content as much as it is you guys.
I mean, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. They're very helpful, really important.
Oh, so Mr. Beckman wrote, how do students know what is important to write down in your textbook? So me personally, I would say, for example, in books like AMSCO or prominent textbooks like Princeton, Barron's, look in the front or the back of the book. And they usually have key terms and things like that. So I would say create a list of key terms and kind of define each term as you're reading. I'll definitely define people, define events, and define concepts. That's the three things that I mentioned. I would mention the AP World History curriculum. Also, take note of what your teacher says. Again, we're talking about learner interaction, taking notes. When your teacher repeats something 3 or 4 times, it's important. So when your teacher says that 3 or 4 times, take note of it. Research it on your own. Do independent study. Look at your textbook. Actively search for answers for that kind of thing. So people, ideas, and events.
I would also say historical themes. The test is based around these historical themes.
Mm-hmm.
I had my first real AP US history class today, and all that my teacher talked about was historical themes. And I was just thinking, that helped me so much in AP World. Makes sense it would apply to AP US. I would also say in a lot of books, they'll have like a question in the top corner, maybe like some italicized words. Those are important. I mean, those basically go into what you said.
Yep. Like analysis questions, key concepts that are posted online. I mean, those are all important things to know when you're reading your textbook.
What would you say was something that if you could like go back into AP World and like change one thing about how you studied or what you learned, what would it be?
In the beginning of the year, I wasn't that focused on AP World as I was on like math, which is it's a weird thing to say, but like I was more focused on math and AP World. And that was kind of a fun class for me. Like I'd regard it as a fun class. I didn't regard it as an AP class. So yeah, I slacked a little bit in the beginning of the year. But I started realizing how important the class was as I became more interested into it. It's very important to have that mindset, the tiger mindset or the killer mindset from the very beginning. So come into class ready to learn, come into class prepared, come with your notes ready, and just never slack in that class. I mean, if you slack, that's just you're not learning something. If you're not learning something, that's a flaw in the AP exam.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say basically the same thing. I regret saying this now, but I almost didn't start studying until like late December. So that was not a good idea because it caused me a lot of stress. So I would say, you want to try and cover your topics earlier. Another thing I would say is practice tests.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start practice tests until April. I probably should have started them earlier. But now I know that for AP US.
Yeah, and if your teacher doesn't give you like stimulus-based practice tests and you're like a freshman, definitely take those practice tests because you can't pass the test if you don't know how the questions are structured. Because once you keep doing them, keep learning. That's why so many teachers give you those stimulus-based tests. I mean, once you keep doing them, you know how to hack the test, how to decipher the questions, because they're not easy. I mean, they're not straightforward. You have to find the answer. Also, don't start. I mean, a lot of my friends started studying in like May, like a week before the test, or like a few days before the test. Don't wait that long. I mean, I started studying, I think in March. Yeah, in early March. So I had like a couple of months to like kind of spare there and kind of spend my own on resources on reviewing. So definitely don't start too late, but don't start too early. So remember the information. March is a great time. Yeah, just never start too late.
I think a good idea with AP World is to kind of form a study group so you can talk with others. So this whole AP World mishap, it was like 8 kids had the same problem as I did. So there were 8 people who were taking it as like an independent study. And basically what happened was, well, a few people, they didn't even read through the textbook, which I would not advise.
Oh,
But anyway, you should try and get what happened?
oh, that's my fault. Sorry.
Okay, you should try and form a study group, because that way you can sort of talk with other people and figure out what do we think is important here? How can we improve each other's writing? Yeah.
I mean, study groups are good as long as you don't leech off people. I mean, don't use other people's resources for yourself. Definitely make your own resources. I mean, a lot of people use other people's resources thinking that helps them. I would much rather make my own things. Make your own notes. Don't use people's notes. So if you're going to form a study group, use it for collaborating on notes and getting as much knowledge as you can. Because just taking other people's knowledge is kind of counterproductive to your AP curriculum. All right, so if there's no more questions, I think we can end the broadcast. All right, so thank you all for coming. We hope to see you whenever our next East Coast study stream is, our live stream is. To answer more questions, definitely tell your friends, tell your teachers to come join our live streams, to kind of hype up our live streams.
Oh, and remember to follow Think Fiveable on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I found them through YouTube. I got a 5 on the test. Maybe you can too.
Yep, I mean, we have an amazing 5 rate, amazing 4 rate, amazing pass rate. So if you're on this platform, you're definitely going to succeed.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Good luck.
Hope you learned some stuff.